School Board to order. We will note with respect to public access to meetings during the public health emergency, we are encouraging members of the public to attend school board members remotely. However, members of the public are allowed to attend in person. We are continuing to comply at our meetings with all protocols in place at our schools, including social distancing and any other safety requirements. We will move into item 2, the roll call and verification of quorum.
Mr. Mansky.
Here.
Ms. Va.
Here.
Mr. Pope.
Here.
Ms. Portson. Here. Mr. Wade.
Here.
Ms. Scott.
Here.
Mr. Ebel.
Here.
Ms. Reno.
Here.
Ms. Erling.
Here.
All present and accounted for.
Item 3 is the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We will move into item 4, which are public comments. I would note to the board and to the public that we are reinstating in-person public comment at meetings at our March 8th, 2021 meeting, and are also continuing to accept comments submitted by email. Did we receive any comments by email?
None by email.
None by email. Okay. All right. We have, I've got a list here of members of the public who have signed up. I've also noted if there are other members of the public who are not able to sign the list, we will be calling anyone interested in speaking. You will be able to speak for 3 minutes. We asked you if the person ahead of you basically said exactly what you were going to say, feel free to just say you agree totally with the previous speaker in order to allow us to have everyone have the time to speak. I do want to note, because I'm seeing right here, there was some, we asked for an agenda item with respect to what you're speaking to. I've got a number on here with respect to masks. I do want to note that the superintendent's report actually notes a back-to-school status update 2021-2022, including COVID-19 protocols, which allows any member of the public to speak with respect to any protocol that the district may be looking at adopting, including masks, during this upcoming school year. So with that being said, I will call the first member of the public to the podium. We ask you to state your name and your address, please, and then you can go ahead and make your comments. The first...
we're going to use some nonverbal cues.
Okay.
For yellow will be at 30 seconds left of your 3 minutes, and red will mean stop.
All right, so Jennifer, is it Nade or Canade?
Kanadi.
Canade, okay. And you can speak at the podium, please.
Reminder to all, when you're speaking, speak into the microphone. If you speak into the microphone right into it, you can hear just fine, but if you don't.
My name is Jennifer Kanadi, and I live at 1932 Church Street. I'm here to simply encourage you, as a teacher, as my students, as I encourage them to do, listen to the experts in the field. Listen to the CDC. Listen to the American Pediatric Association. Listen to the data that our own Portage County Health and Human Services is giving you. COVID cases are once again on the rise. Here in Portage County, we were once again at a state of high spread. Last year, we kept our students in school all year long using simple, common sense protocols. I was a librarian up in Wausau last year. I saw 500 kids in my school. 90% of those elementary school kids came to school every day and wore their mask without issue. For those that have a reason that they can't wear a mask, absolutely we should look at exceptions. Our kids do not have a problem with the masking. Our experts say masking is what we need to do to keep kids in school. Please do what the experts say. Please do what is best for our kids. Please do what will keep kids in school all year long again. Reinstate masking requirements for the Stevens Point School District. Thank you very much. I am going to leave the meeting at this point, but I will be tuning in online to watch. Thank you very much for your service and leadership.
Thank you. Mike Zaremba?
Hello, my name is Mike Zaremba, and I live at 7006 Old Highway 18 Road in Custer. This is my first time attending a school board meeting, and I thank you for the opportunity to address you directly. I'm here for 4 reasons. The first is I would like your assurance and guarantee that we will not see anything from critical race theory by that name or any other taught to my daughter as she enters the 1st grade. I would like your assurance and guarantee that there will be no inappropriate sexual education.
I'm sorry, that is not on the agenda tonight. You're not able to speak to that.
Okay.
We are not discussing that this evening, but you are able to speak with respect to any items that we do have on our agenda.
Okay, let's record it. I would like to ask for live stream classroom cameras so that I can listen in to the lessons of the day and have more meaningful discussions with my daughter after school. Regarding the masking, I would like you to know that I insisted on my daughter going to kindergarten in person because I believed that it was necessary for her to learn how to be a good student, how to participate in a classroom environment, and this was not something that could possibly be done as a remote student watching a computer screen. After sending her, a few weeks into this, she developed a problem with her throat clearing. We had to take her to 3 different general practitioners, 2 internal specialists, and a gastrointestinal specialist. And in the end, it was discovered that she had an infection in her left sinus that took 30 days of amoxicillin therapy to clean up. As some of you may know, a group of parents in Florida sent the masks of their children to the University of Florida lab for analysis and found multiple species of very dangerous bacteria on those masks after a single day of use. While I have no proof to give you that this caused or made worse her condition, I have the firm belief that it did no good to help her, and I have grave concerns about asking her to wear masks again for days at a time. Regarding the trust in the CDC leadership, recent events and Freedom of Information request into the emails of Dr. Fauci have revealed serious credibility issues with the politicization of this issue and with the decrees coming from the leadership of that agency. And I ask you, leave it to the parents of this community to decide for themselves, to decide what to do. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, very well said. And I'm going to have to ask to refrain from clapping. This is not a public forum, this is a board meeting. We don't allow that at our board meetings. We also want to ensure that every one of the speakers is receiving the same level of attention and respect as we
They should have been here then.
So I will move into 3 is April Alinger.
Good evening. My name is Eva Ellinger, and I have 4 sons in the Stevens Point School District.
Could
My
you state your
oldest
address, please,
to-
for the records?
My oldest is going to be a senior in high school this year.
Could you state your address for the record, please?
2431 OK Bluff Circle in Pulver, Wisconsin.
Thank you.
I'm looking at a report here from Johns Hopkins University, they did a study calling for doing an analysis on deaths of COVID. The article states that the deaths before the pandemic and after the pandemic was relatively the same. In fact, I'm looking at it right here on my phone. In fact, for each age group, the number of deaths were relatively the same. So, I would like to ask the school board, where's the data and the science that this virus is so lethal that we need to mask up our kids for 18 months and social distance and keep them away from each other, all the while having anxiety and relationships not being able to be continued with their friends at school, trouble with learning, and all kinds of other things. So if you can present any data that supports the deadliness of this virus, we can talk. But until then, I have not seen any numbers change. Thank you.
Thank you. Again, I ask you to refrain from applause. I do want to note that board members, because it's public comment, by state law, we are not allowed to respond, our board members are not allowed to respond to you substantively. If there's an issue that needs clarification, a board member can ask a simple question, but otherwise we're not allowed to engage in any dialogue with speakers during public comment. Thomas K. Blaze.
Good evening. My name is Thomas K. Blaze. I live at 2351 Jelinski Circle in Plover. Mr. Zaremba basically and eloquently covered what I had planned on talking about this evening, but I have a couple of things that I'd like to address very quickly. Number one is we're asked to follow the science. It's my personal opinion that the science has been so polluted and contaminated with political agenda that it's difficult to know what is the science and what isn't the science. I would like to know if there's anything that can possibly be done to digest everything that's thrown at you and into a cauldron and mixed around, and see if you could come up with a science that gives you stone cold hard facts, so that a parent that has a child going to school can look at these facts and make an intelligent decision instead of being forced into an emotional state. Everybody here is relatively intelligent, and you can make a good decision if you have the facts presented in front of you. But if you don't, you're flipping a coin. And we know that there's a lot of money that's tied up in the vaccines, in the virus, business-wise, personal-wise. There's a lot of money that's being made out there. Not by us, but by the politicians, by the medical people, etc. That's basically all I have to say, and thank you very much for your time and for your service. I greatly appreciate it.
Thank you. And I guess if you could refrain from applause, please. We move into, I believe is it Lyle Blaze?
I am Lyle, and I just want to say I do agree with the first speakers. Completely, totally.
Thank you. We have Madeline Asenga.
I'm Madeline Ozinga, and I just want to say that I agree with Mr. Blaze, and I really feel that parents need to have this option for their children on masks.
And could you state your address, please?
2441 Jelinski Circle in Plover.
Thank you. All right, Rhea Ann Katowski. Araya Ann Katowski? Might be in
Give them time, they're probably walking over.
from the other, they may be in the other room.
Here she comes.
And there's someone that's gonna put a sign up, indicating that 3 minutes are up, probably 2 signs, a yellow.
Hello, thanks for the opportunity to speak. My name is Rhea Katowski. I live at 2224 County Road HH in Junction City. First of all, I'd like to say that I have a son that goes to SPASH. He is a senior, and he is autistic. And it's been kind of a fight because he has a mask exemption, and it has never been honored at the school from day one. And he has a hard time communicating. He needs to be able to see faces, and they need to be able to see his face too. So this has been very emotionally, wrecking for me. He recently had a tooth out, and the oral surgeon had said to me that he would write Oliver a mask exemption, because when you put a mask over the face while your teeth are trying to heal, that breeds bacteria inside the mouth. So he had said to me...
I'm sorry, I just want us all to be able to hear you, and we're either getting feedback from that other room.
Yeah, I hear my voice too.
Did that just occur?
That just is, I think it's because the door opened. So if we can just keep...
Door shut.
I think there is a little bit bleeding through the door.
Yeah, but did that just start now? Because
It's a delay, like a 20-second.
it's delayed, right?
I don't know if we can turn the sound down just a little bit in there and still allow people to hear. I just don't want the speakers fighting with the echo that's happening in that other room. It's
You can hear
distracting to
yourself, and
everyone.
that's...
It's distracting.
Okay. Let me go on. So I talked to Principal John Vollendorf about my situation, and I told him that I really didn't want my son's mouth to be breeding a bacterial infection, and that on the advice of the oral surgeon, I would like a mask exemption for my son. And his response to me was that he could not do that because he was told that everybody had to have something on their face in order for everybody to be in attendance. And I said, well, this can't be, that there is absolutely no way to exempt yourself or your child from wearing a mask. I said, there has to be some stipulations, and he could not list one thing. I said, well, what if somebody had cerebral palsy and they were drooling in it, and it was just everywhere? Like, is there not any reason that you wouldn't, exempt a child? And he said, there's no reason. So I'm kind of disgusted with that, because why hasn't there been any evaluation as to which children it's safe for and which is not? Which actually brings me to my point with the OSHA standards. So when OSHA people...
30 seconds.
Oh, I only have 3 seconds. Anyway, OSHA standard says that you need to test for mask safety. You need to test the oxygen levels when people have the mask on to determine if they're high enough. That's not being done. The work environment's not being evaluated with anybody, or school environment. There's no environments being evaluated for their safety of having a mask all day. Also, there was a study done.
We'll have to cut comments off.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And again, if you could refrain from applause, please. This is a business meeting of the board that the public is invited to attend and to provide public comment. I would appreciate if you respect the rules that we govern our meetings by. Linda, is it Wot? Wata? Oh, Wanta, I'm sorry.
Hi, I'm Linda Wancha. I live at 323 Wood Lane in Stevens Point. I have grandchildren, I have nieces and nephews in the school system, and I have a great-granddaughter coming up through the ranks that will be there soon. And I agree with everything and read all the studies that everybody has stated, and I agree with them 100%. And the gal that was just up here, and with the bacterial, and I do have personal with breathing, especially with kids. What I want to take a chance is to talk about the fear. Okay, when they get to high school level, okay. At that level, I think it should be. The kids can decide, and they need to interface. More so at the elementary level, and all the way through. And I'm going to tell you this story. My great-granddaughter goes with me quite a bit. We go shopping, we go wherever. Well, now it's opened up, and she's totally a different little girl. When I have taken her shopping with me, and people are all in the mask and stuff, this is a child that just stares in fear. Kids need to look at expressions. They need to look at it when they're young. They need to look at it in school. They need to be able to smile at each other. They need to be able to express, scrunch their nose. These are all part of expressing, not just your voice. And the teachers, if they have the choice and want to be vaccinated, fine. And I believe everybody should have a choice. There are people that want their kids masked, fine. But there are many that don't, just for that sole reason. And if the teachers don't want to be masked, allow them to express to the children. They learn from facial expressions, not just what they hear. They have to have the whole volume of learning, and right up into high school. Some of the best teachers that my kids have had was through those facial expressions, not just with the hands, not just with the voice. The best teachers were the ones that got loud, that smiled, that you betcha.
You have, ma'am, you have 30 more seconds, ma'am.
I get 30 more
You do. Yeah.
Well, there's my 30 because I limp a little. But thank you very much. I hope you really consider, we're not saying no mask. We are saying, please, let the parents choose, let the kids have the options. Because the parents that really do believe in it will send their kids with it. But when the parents that don't want it, allow them that option. Thank you.
Thank you. Well said. So I am, I believe the next person who signed up is Becky Cresson.
Thank you for allowing us to speak today. First, I want to comment on, somebody had said the American Pediatric Association, we should listen to their advice. As soon as they made that recommendation, people started getting nosy looking on their website, and I just want to point out one of their main sponsors is Pfizer. Pfizer, who has made a $19 million profit in only 3 months in this year. So when they're being sponsored by the vaccine companies, of course, they're going to promote what they want to promote. So you have to follow the money trail when you're looking for advice on things. Second, obviously, I'm in support of no masks. They haven't done many surveys around the state. The one I did see, only 18% of parents wanted the choice, wanted masks to be mandated. So I'm assuming that's probably fairly common at this point in this process. People have a lot different standings this year than last year, and they'd like the choice for masks to be optional. The other agenda item is under 13, recommendation for Superintendent Gerlach's authority to implement operational academic processes to continue. I would like to see that stopped. One person having sole decision-making without the board, be able to have input without the board, be able to vote. Sometimes without the board knowing what's coming up in advance, or us knowing what's coming up in advance. So we can't give input as taxpayers and parents either. I just don't think it's okay. I watched it happen in spring all the time where, he'd just be like, well, here's the plan. And everybody, board included, would be like, okay, so I think it needs to be where the board can vote and the citizens know what's, on the agenda, and that it needs to go back to the people who are elected to represent us having say in things too. Yeah. So, like I said, masks need to be optional. This quarantining, we were just at Rapids. They had more cases than Point does. They have about 5,000. We have about 7,500 students and staff. They had more cases, and their close contacts positives were, they think it was between 8 to 12 out of almost 500 cases. So the amount of kids and teachers and staff that were quarantined for weeks, and some of them multiple times during that school year, for a handful of cases is a lot. It's kind of ridiculous. If somebody's not showing symptoms, if they haven't tested positive, we don't need to be quarantining them for weeks on a time. So, thank you.
Thank you. Again, I'd ask for the audience to respect the requests to not applaud. This is not a public hearing. This is a business meeting of the board, and I would appreciate that respect for our board members and for our superintendent and our administration. I will move to the next speaker, who is Aline Kozlowski. And I apologize if I'm not speaking your names correctly.
My name is Aline Kozlowski. I reside at 545 Franklin Street, Stevens Point, tax-paying citizen. I have 2 children in the school district. One is 10, my daughter is 13. I have spoken to them both about this issue, the vaccine, the mask, everything. My daughter does choose to wear the mask when she goes places. I have given her the right to decide for herself. She is a young lady. I obviously don't agree with her, but she has the right to choose for herself, as we all should have the right to choose for ourselves. My son is different. He doesn't want to wear the mask. It gives him a little bit of a claustrophobic feeling, and I don't want to compel him to. So I'm speaking to you today to encourage you to make this mask issue a voluntary basis thing. Masks collect bacteria. When you force folks to wear masks, you are taking away our ability and freedom to choose for ourselves. Our country is based on freedom. I have an idea. Let us decide what we want to do. And if people are scared and they don't want to be around other people who want to express themselves and not wear a mask, they can stay home. The first lady that talked mentioned that we should listen to the experts. There are just as many doctors that say masks don't work, but those folks are silenced and discredited because they have a differing opinion. I'm here today because I would like for you to listen to us. We are parents. We live in the community. We are tax-paying citizens. I know that sometimes in the past, you have listened to us and then done what you wanted to do. Please do the right thing. Listen to us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It is essential that you comply with the rules, or we're going to have to close public comment.
Meg, I don't know if this group is, I'm gonna,
They need to
I don't know if they're
understand
hearing
it.
that. Excuse me, but this is a school board meeting, and our school board president has a different class that doesn't get public hearings. don't like it, you can leave. Was there another name?
Yes, Ben Korek.
Ben?
Hold on. Hi, thanks for your service and appreciate you guys. My name is Ben Kurek. I live on 2631 Springville Drive, Plover, Wisconsin. I'd like to kind of echo what a lot of those people have said, you know, about facial expressions, how important those are, and how important choice is. We as parents, we as Americans have freedom of choice, and I think that should be respected. It's very important, as we know from the Constitution of the United States, that freedom is important. The First Amendment, Second Amendment, Third Amendment, all those are important. I'd like to quote a study also. This is from Liberty Counsel. It was about data supplied by Israel, one of the most vaccinated nations in the world. It shows that 64.5% of those hospitalized and 67% of seriously ill people with COVID were fully immunized with both shots. That's according to a report released by Israeli Ministry of Health, July 20, 2021. It has been reported via Israel, Hayam, and other international news sources, but not the American media. The UK, the British Health Ministry reports that 87.2% of active COVID cases are among fully vaccinated people. So that's something that we need to consider. I know there's contrary news reports in American media, but a lot of those are being suppressed. A lot of important studies are being suppressed. And so I'd also like to mention that we are made in the image of God. God created us. He didn't create us to wear masks all the time. And I have a question: how long will this go on? Is there an end date to all this? You know, how long will this continue? And you look, if you study the Bible as well, which we learned a long time, they knew about hand washing in Leviticus long before it was mentioned. Samuel Emmelweiss was a guy that talked about hand washing, how important it was. Many women were dying in childbirth. And the Bible talked about that 1,000 years before he discovered that. So, and the God of the Bible says that we shouldn't quarantine those that are healthy, but you can quarantine the sick. And so that's another thing to consider. So that's all I have to say, and thank you for your service. Thank you for listening to us. And that's all. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you for your words.
Yep.
Thank you.
What? Yep.
Keith Kodrowski.
Keith in here? Keith Katrowski?
Good evening. Keith Kodrowski, 1536 Water Street, Apartment D. Yeah, pretty much everything I want to say has been said, but a couple items. The bacteria in the mask, it's absolutely disgusting. For you people not to realize this, put these kids through this, shame on you. It's like you're killing these kids, you particularly. But anyhow, treating of the disease in ivectormin, hydroxychloroquine, how many people could have been saved if the CDC wouldn't have suppressed the use of these drugs? If they're 50% effective, sounds like 250,000 if you're saying 500,000 got killed. Follow science. Co-parenting, I'm not a parent. A lot of my friends are. They don't need help. They do a great job. Get out of their business, get out of their lives. They'll take care of their kids. As for the power of the superintendent, absolutely needs to be on you guys in the board. Need roll call votes. Public needs to know how you voted, so when you come up for election, they know which one of you people need to be removed. So thank you for your time.
Good job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well spoken.
David Iden.
David?
David Iden.
David Iden?
Good evening. I appreciate the ability for myself and the public to speak in front of the board here this evening. The first thing I would like to touch upon is critical.
I'm sorry, could you state your name and address? for the
Yes,
record?
that would be David Iden, and my address is 1008 Matilda Street, Stevens Point.
Thank you.
First thing I would like to touch on is a CRT, critical race theory, and how it's based on
It
lies.
is not on the agenda for this evening, so
It is not on-
public
okay.
comment is not allowed on that this evening.
Very good. When it comes to masking, and we talk about following the science, we're tired of following the junk science. There is actually true science. We've heard some of this tonight about the masks. We are all aware of the masks keeping oxygen from people, and the bacteria that masks are ineffective also. Masks do not filter that fine micron virus that is the contaminant and is spreading. It's also an invasion of privacy for our students. So schools are the original social network. That's where you learn to develop. That's why we go to 4K nowadays, because we want our children learning how to network socially at that age and throughout the entire school year. My son was a senior last year, and prior to that, when school ended and all of his sports activities in the spring, which he was involved in and interested in doing, were cut off. And then you had to sit home and attempt to learn online, which doesn't work for many, and it was handled poorly. Masks should be optional at best. Don't oppose anybody who is interested in wearing a mask. Parents need to have more involvement also in their children. It becomes, we want to control this. We're not going to let a crisis go to waste. This will last forever if this is the case. Real problematic. You know, there are other ways to go about these things. They say the vaccine will save you, you won't need a mask. Now it comes back, vaccine or not, you're going to have to wear a mask. We don't care, even though the masks are ineffective. So this becomes problematic. Our children are in school to learn, and they are in school to network with their peers. Some of the stories of the heavy-handedness of the teachers are problematic. The children can't even communicate in the schools, and that needs to stop. They need to look each other in the face. Facial expressions are important. It's part of the networking. So I do appreciate your time. I would really hope that you seriously consider where we're going this coming year, because we don't want to see another year like last year. Children are not subject to the disease, which is a serious disease, as has been noted in Consider What Science It Is. There's a lot of science out there that has been neglected. We need to look at all the science, and especially the science that's real, not the politically motivated science. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. And Brock Maddox.
Brock Maddox, 5421 Plover, Monroe Avenue, Plover, Wisconsin. The first thing I want to discuss is that I'm the president of the Freedom Fighters Central Wisconsin with over 4,800 members. First agenda is number 13. Gerlach's totalitarian agenda must stop.
I do want to note that our public comments do not allow aspersions or negative comments with respect
Okay,
to
well, we
individuals,
believe
so-
that the vote should be within the board members and taken from Gerlach. Okay, so we teamed up with 38 groups in Wisconsin. We, the parents, issued this letter to Governor Evers and President Biden. I'm here to bring you this message from 3,800 groups, or 38 other groups. And it says, President Biden and Governor Evers, we represent over 20,000 families across 38 parent advocacy groups, and we are here to inform you your uninvited reign of destruction over the children of Wisconsin is finished. We have watched the last week unfold in abject horror, observing our government, institutions, and leaders failing our children at every turn, again. Your renewed calls for lockdowns, enforced mandates, and masking in schools are not rooted in science and is objectively cruel to the most vulnerable in our society, our children. We believe that you are in fact aware of this and continue to play political games with our children. Despite our efforts to work with you over the last 12 months, we are here to inform you that this ends today. Effective immediately, we will not, 1, mask our children in schools. 2, allow you to use private sector counterparts to enforce invasive mask mandates on our children in various stores or community activities. 3, subject our children to any further local, regional, or national lockdowns or movement restrictions. Simply put, these are not your children. They are ours, and they too are Americans with rights. They are our responsibility and our most beloved. They are not yours. We applaud and support the school boards, businesses, and localities that have respected our personal choice. We anticipate and appreciate their continued support of our right to choose what is best for our children and individual families. If you are a parent reading this, hear us clearly. You are not alone. We urge you to connect with other parents and make your voice heard. We are strong. We are united. We are in control. We have never and will never co-parent with the government. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Again, I would ask that people refrain from comment with respect to the speakers. Those are all who signed up. At this point, is there anyone here this evening that wasn't able to sign up and would like to speak? And we will take you one at a time. So we do have someone in the back if you'd like to come up to the podium and state your name and address, please.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sandy Ellis, 4675 Martha's Lane, Junction City. My background for 30 years has been in the field of early childhood, particularly paying attention to all the brain research, infant and early childhood development that occurs. That's science that we know. That's been studied for years. We understand that. I'm a trainer and consultant with UW School of Social Work, with the Wisconsin Infant Mental Health Alliance, and a past board member there, and our CISA systems. I've trained Head Start teachers in our own Stevens Point School District to understand the importance of the social and emotional development with our young kids, and that they will not be school ready unless they have that foundation of social and emotional development. An earlier speaker talked about the facial expressions and how important they are, and that's crucial. And so we know there are windows of opportunity for that development to occur, and if we miss those windows, those children don't ever get that back. So that science is clear. The 0 to 3 organization and many other national organizations have recognized that, along with the American Pediatric Association. And as a matter of fact, earlier in this pandemic, the Pediatric Association did not support mask wearing for young children. My own granddaughters, earlier in the year when I said, "Are you making new friends?" she started to cry and say, "Grandma, I can't see anybody's face. I don't know who they are." And she doesn't know her teacher. It broke my heart. And so I say, we will not study this for many years. We will not know the impact of this on our children for many years. So why would we take a chance and not follow the science that we know for sure? Many of you may remember, I'm old, but many of you may remember that some years ago there was a huge push around emotional intelligence, that businesses want people who have emotional intelligence and know how to self-regulate those emotions, right? We can't do that if we miss those windows of opportunity. And so classroom behavior, I'm guessing we can expect to see much of that escalate, make it more difficult for parents. And if we even look beyond our young kids in classes, the whole high school population can't be ignored either. It's just as difficult and maybe longer for them, or harder for them, as their anxiety rises and we watch what's happening with the mental health involvement that's happening in our school system as a result. Kids that are happy to stay in their basements with their laptops and have a lot of anxiety about returning to school and being masked. So I appreciate the opportunity to speak, hope that you consider our comments, and I also support the current structure, allowing board members to be the decision makers of issues here with input from our superintendent. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone in this room who was not able to speak who would like to speak?
Yeah, I just have Harper Feltz, who she just wanted to say something. So our address is 502 South Street, Milladore, Wisconsin, and the floor is yours, love.
Well, in school, when we are wearing masks, we are in gym time, say if it's raining outside or it's in the winter time, when we're running back and forth or around laps, it gets very, very hot. But when we're wearing our masks, it doesn't help because when we have them up, we can't really breathe. So when we take them down, we have fresh air and it's kind of cooler. And when we are in school and we are trying to learn something or say we're doing like a specific activity, and we're like using a lot of our energy, it gets super hot when we are trying to work and do different stuff. So I think that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you.
Thank you. Craig, do you want to check and see if there's anyone in the adjacent room that would like to speak?
It looks like two. There's a gentleman after.
Hi, my name is Crystal Gruber. I live at 2520 Clary Court in Plover, Wisconsin. Thank you, everybody. I have had a student in the Stevens Point Public School District for the last 28 years. My youngest daughter is a junior who left her freshman year as an honor student and did horrid last year. I also have two granddaughters that are in the system, so I just want to make sure that they get the education that my older kids did, which, quite frankly, I don't believe is happening right now. I want to follow the science. And so there was a study done back in January of 2020, happened to be a young woman who came in and tested positive for COVID-19 because of a heart problem that she was having. They studied her and all of the people that were around her, and she got no one infected. Hundreds of people that she had been exposed to, no one was infected. People that that don't have symptoms, that are asymptomatic, are not passing COVID. That goes for our children who actually are supposed to be very low risk for passing COVID. So let's follow that science. If you can find me a study after COVID started that shows that masks do any benefit. In fact, even Dr. Fauci has a study out there that shows that masks don't do anything for the flu virus and in fact cause more harm than they do good. And they certainly shouldn't be on our children. Last year, we had those kids wearing them all the time, even when they were outside. There's no reason we don't pass COVID outside. This is something we know. We're not following the science. We're following the science we want to follow. And as far as the APA, they absolutely flip-flopped their original position because of they were told to. I mean, it was pressure from outside sources. So when we look at the APA, look back to their original recommendations. Our kids won't be in masks. Our kids will be in schools. All the teachers have had a chance to get the vaccine if they want it. The kids should be allowed to enjoy and have a normal school year. So that's all I'm saying. Oh, and please, the board needs to vote. This doesn't come down to one person.
We voted for the school board for a reason. We need you to stand and do your job and make sure that one person is not dictating what happens to our children. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Again, I'd ask you to please refrain from clapping or speaking. I believe we have, is there another speaker, Craig?
One last, I believe.
Hi, my name is Colin Kobishop. I reside at 3341 Cleveland Avenue, Plover, Wisconsin 54467. Here to talk about, let's talk about the mask you're all wearing. Dr. Fauci uses a study, I believe it's from India. It's the only study he uses. That study has been gone through peer review. It has failed every single time it's gone through peer review. You cannot buy one mask on the market anywhere in the world that's certified to prevent COVID. Not one. In fact, I will give everybody in this room $5,000 that they can prove that their mask is certified for COVID. Because you even look at the box that says it's not certified for COVID. So, masks don't work. Second of all, let's talk about the testing for COVID. Do you know how they developed the test for COVID? They used cold, because they didn't have COVID. So everybody who tested for COVID is testing for a cold. Now the CDC is telling us in December, we're going to have a brand new test because it can't find COVID. And that's true. Look at the CDC website. That's where it's been posted. Let's talk about the state of Maryland. Maryland has about 6,000 residents. In the month of July, 81 people supposedly tested positive for COVID with a test that's supposed to test for a cold because that's the basis it was made up. Now, let's do some simple math here. Now, just to let you know, I know how to use a calculator. I have my bachelor's degree in electrical engineering and power controls, and I have a master's degree in finance and accounting and finance. So I'm going to take the magic number of 81 divided by 6 million, the population of Maryland. In the month of July, in the state of Maryland, the percentage is 0.0000135 of the population supposedly had COVID from a test that was made up from the cold. So now we have the Delta variant. Now they're going to have a brand new test for the Delta variant that's coming out in December. That's wonderful. So now, why are we masking up? Why are we doing this? And I believe it's control. I truly do. And I think it's psychological control. And that is a shame that we're punishing our children with this. Let them be free. Until one of you can prove to me that the mask you're wearing is certified. And again, I will give you $5,000 cash. You want hundreds, 20s, 10s, whatever you want. Again, my name is Colin Colbishop, 3341 Cleveland Avenue. Come to my house and prove to me that your mask is certified. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any other member of the public here this evening who would like to speak and has not yet spoken? Hearing none, we will move on in our agenda to presentations, and we have a communication report. Sarah O'Donnell.
Hi. The communication dashboard for the month of July is included in your packet. We saw a significant percentage of engagement across all social channels, really coming from stories and shares around athletics. Specifically for the month, we had athletes receive some national recognition, which put us in more outlets and increased that engagement. We began to see media coverage ramp up as we approach back-to-school communications season. Many of the media inquiries I'm receiving are related directly to COVID. However, I am happy to share that we're seeing some of those typical back-to-school story requests come in, and we're being able to push some of those typical back-to-school story requests as well. One came in for busing, and then we did a bigger story last week on the child care facility opening at Kennedy Elementary School. Back-to-school communications have begun on a school and district level and will continue to increase in frequency and substance as we get closer to the school year. The most current information we have will continue to be housed on the district website under both the back to school section and the COVID procedures and protocols as those change and or update as we get closer to the year. I'm also excited to share we're in the process of finalizing details for open houses at 5 of our buildings in conjunction with back to school nights. Those will be Kennedy, Plover Whiting, Washington, and Roosevelt Elementary Schools. That'll take place in conjunction with their back to school nights. We'll have give families a chance to come through, meet the teacher, and then we'll go ahead and invite community in as well to see what those updates look like at the schools. And then SPASH will take place on September 30th. We're going to give them some breathing room, get their school year started. So keep an eye out. We'll be sharing invitations with the public through a number of places. So for those who are interested, please keep an eye out, and we will look forward to seeing you there. That's it for me, unless there's questions.
Do board members have any questions of Sarah with respect to the communication report? Thanks, Sarah. We will move into item B, which is the superintendent's report.
The first issue I want to talk about is the status of our staffing. We currently have 39 new certified staff members hired. We still have 7 pending. We feel comfortable that we'll get those positions filled. We are continuing to have problems hiring school psychologists and special education teachers. We also have 32 open positions that we are currently interviewing for as it relates to non-certified support staff. This is very consistent with years in the past. Our preliminary budget performance was, and again, it's preliminary. Tom Owens will be bringing forward a formal presentation this fall. But if you'll recall, we went into this year with close to $1 million deficit. And in reality, we are actually in the back by $700,000, which is a considerable swing, and it's tied directly into COVID. There was a lack of spending, for example, significant lack in terms of travel because there were no conferences, there wasn't any staff travel, and there was a considerable uptick in our revenue related to ESSER 1 and ESSER 2 going into the school year. Like this year with ESSER 3, prior to the year beginning, that wasn't embedded in into the budget. So it's positive that we're in the black. However, it's short-lived. It's because of the, quite frankly, the ESSER funds and lack of spending as it relates to COVID. And that steps into ESSER 3 funding. We received, I believe today, got an email from Dr. Owens that we'll be receiving $6,137,411. Again, that's ESSER 3. Between ESSER 1 and 2, we had about $3 million. So that's a substantial amount of money that we'll be able to utilize over the next couple years. And we will inform you as we move forward in terms of how those dollars will be applied. Obviously, there are strict restrictions as it relates to what we can use those funds for. And the last is the back-to-school status update, including COVID-19 protocols. Corey's going to walk through a presentation. This is similar to what we did last year. And then if there's questions afterward of the board, we'll take those. Again, as it was mentioned tonight.
Craig, could we, before we get into that, do board members have any questions for Craig about the staffing, that preliminary budget performance, or the ESSER funds?
Can I ask a question?
Yep.
On the ESSER funds, how does that work? Do you actually are you just notified that you have $6 million available to you? You seek reimbursement after you spend money?
We have to apply for it.
Okay.
Very specific requirements in terms of, and ESSER 3, we're still interpreting exactly what that means. It's more complicated than ESSER 1 and 2, but we would take the requirements, make sure our expenditures are appropriate, and then we make application, and then it gets reviewed before the reimbursement.
Yeah, and that's over a 2-year period?
I believe ESSER 3 is 3.
Okay.
But just how it ties into the state budget itself, those dollars won't last 3 years because the state is giving us fewer dollars tied into the windfall that is believed to come from the federal government.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Any other board members have questions? Craig, I just have one question. My understanding is that there is a sort of a public information component to the ESSER $3.
Right, we got actually feedback from our legal counsel just today in terms of what that looks like, and so we'll be, we'll take a closer look at it at cabinet and then bring forward information to the board in terms of getting feedback from the public as well as staff. Those are two requirements. How that looks is yet to be determined. I think we have some options in terms of getting that feedback. Anything to add to that? Yeah.
Okay, all right, thank you.
And again, I'm going to have Cor go through our protocol or our COVID-19 protocol, our back to school update, and then look at questions at the end. This is a report. It is not for any action.
So as Craig had indicated, this just includes basically a status update on where we are currently. If you recall from, of course, last year, we had 3 commitments that we stayed focused on. That was student safety, instruction, and then flexibility. Health and safety of our staff, health and safety of our students will be a driving consideration as we move throughout this next school year with multiple layers of mitigation strategies. Several different sources that we've been in contact with, Portage County Health, Department of Health Services, Department of Public Instruction, the CDC, really encourages getting kids back to school for in-person learning while also integrating many of the prevention strategies that they've put forth. Instruction, we know that we're going to have a lot of kids coming back to us that have lost instructionally. And it's our job, and we're excited about them coming back to our buildings, and we're going to do everything we can to figure out where they're at and how we can help intervene and help all students continue to grow personally as well as academically. We're also going to continue to follow the natural progression of reopening, whatever that may mean in the coming weeks. And then keeping flexible throughout the year. We learned that last year. We need to make sure that we continue to do that this coming year. So I talked a little bit about the learning loss. We have some tools and resources that we plan to put in place to figure out exactly where our students are academically and how we can best intervene to help them. It also includes a screener, so if there might be students that are struggling for one reason or another, it will help us to provide some interventions that we can utilize within the district, within the community, to help those students feel better about who they are and what's happened over the last 16 months. We know that we're now establishing a new baseline. Where we were pre-COVID is likely nowhere in the near future. So we're creating a new baseline, and we'll continue to evaluate those assessment and grading practices as we go about the next few years. We have lots of standards to cover, so we're going to be determining across the district with our staff what are those essential learning targets that students must know and be able to understand and perform. And we'll individualize that instruction, and we'll provide credit recovery for those students that we know are coming back this year that are severely credit deficient. And then we'll give our teachers and we'll give our students the resources and the supports that they need to be successful. There are inequities. What we feel like is that there was a gap pre-COVID. That gap has just gotten wider. So we'll try to identify where those gaps are. We know that we're disproportionate in some areas and that we need to address that. We've hired a new diversity, equity, and inclusion coordinator. We're going to be helping those people to be successful and making sure that they have the resources and the tools also to figure out where are we as a district and where do we need to go to help everyone succeed. And then again, just identifying problem areas and problem solving those as we transition into in-person learning for the next year. We also learned last year when we had to shift to a lot of e-learning that there was a real digital inequity. There was lots of families that did not have internet access, lots of families that did not have access to hardware. So we'll do everything that we can to make sure that our students and families have the tools that they need throughout the year. Social emotional health, I had indicated a little bit earlier that we will do a screener for students to figure out where they are at, and we'll intervene as necessary. And then we also know that because we've got a lot of students that may be struggling, we're going to have to review our staffing and reallocate staff where appropriate, and also add new staff if we see a need there. Could include counselors, could include social workers, behavior interventionists, or even program support specialists. We intend to continue our collaboration with mental health providers within our communities. We'll enhance that as we need. We also will do a lot of individual and group counseling with students. And now more than ever, we need to be engaging with our families. Students need all of us working together in collaboration to help students. Community connections and resources, we have a lot of those in the community that are very supportive and helpful of our district and our schools and our students. We're going to continue to enhance those connections and make sure that, again, kids have what they need. I mean, that's our job, and we're going to do everything we can to make sure that we do that. Professional development is always on our our list of priorities within the district, but now more than ever, once we find out what it is teachers feel like they need to help students be successful, we'll do everything we can to provide them the professional development to do that, some of which has already started this year. So our learning model for this coming year, a focus on traditional classroom learning, pre-K through 12. We will have targeted e-learning where necessary. So if there's a classroom, if there's a grade level or a school that has to be shut down for a capacity issue or a lot of COVID cases within one area, we'll make sure that we're able to provide e-learning in those targeted cases. We do have an online learning option for those families in grades 6 through 12. They have students in 6th grade through 12th grade that just don't feel comfortable coming back to school. They have the opportunity to do full-time e-learning if they so choose. We also are in collaboration with Rural Virtual Academy, and that's a program offered online full-time for students in grades kindergarten through grades 12. Special ed, of course, is always present within our district, but we also have some specialized programming that we'll make sure that we continue throughout this year, such as Project Search, YES, our Juvenile Detention Center, and Bridges. So here are a few of the operational highlights that we implemented last year that we'll plan to continue this year as of right now. So there are physical barriers. There's the plexiglass. So if buildings need additional plexiglass, or that plexiglass that was used last year, we'll make sure that those are all in place and ready to go. Drinking water fountains, we'll only allow those to be used as bottle filling stations at this point. We will have cups available for students that may not have access to a water bottle. Ventilation, our buildings, thankfully with the support of the community and the referendum dollars, our buildings have an increased outside air ventilation that happens in our buildings, and we feel that that's something that, of course, will definitely continue into next school year. Cleaning and disinfecting will continue on a daily and weekly basis. Hand washing and respiratory etiquette, just teaching kids wash your hands, sanitize. Again, stay home when sick. Staff aren't feeling well. If kids aren't feeling well, we're going to encourage them just to stay home. And then the COVID point of contacts, Beth Bakanovich will be our staff point of contact, and I will continue to be our student point of contact. School operations, so we'll continue to make sure that we're creating space for distancing to the greatest extent possible. We will continue to have some of our workspaces rearranged. We have things still out of our classrooms that were taken and put into storage last year. We'll plan to continue to keep those things out of our rooms so that we can distance students more. If someone is to become really ill and have multiple symptoms of COVID, we would continue to keep them in that isolation room until their family is able to come and get them. Shared objects and supplies within the classroom. We encourage, of course, individual supplies, and we will have additional sanitation things in the classroom for those to be cleaned on a regular basis. The district dashboard that we had last year that shows our active number of cases within the district for both students and staff will continue. So that will be available on our district website. We plan to allow visitors back in our building. We ended the year with visitors in our building. We'll plan to continue visitors in our building at this point. We really see a value in a lot of our volunteers, our foster grandparents, and we really feel that if students are struggling, some of those individuals make the best contact and relationships with those students. So we want to continue that. Field trips and gatherings, we ended the year that way last year also. We want to continue that, but we're asking that when people plan a field trip or a large event that they check in with educational services before a final decision is made, just because we feel like we've got the most up-to-date information and can provide some guidance into that final decision. Extracurricular activities will continue. We've had some of our sports already actually start, so we're in the process of that already. Clubs and activities will take place with social distancing and safety measures in place. These are a list of prevention strategies that were recommended from the American Academy of Pediatrics, CDC, all of those different places that I had mentioned earlier. These are the prevention strategies that we will continue to implement. So a recommendation of consistent and correct mask use, that is right now. I mean, a final decision, as Craig had indicated, has not been made, but that's where we're at right now. Physical distancing to the greatest extent possible, ventilation, hand washing, encouraging students and staff to monitor their symptoms and stay home when sick and get tested. Continue contact tracing and enforcement of quarantine return dates, cleaning and disinfecting, and encourage vaccinations as people feel comfortable. So right now, per the CDC guidance, it is recommended that there is universal indoor masking for all teachers, staff, students, and visitors to K-12 schools regardless of vaccination status. And per CDC order at this time, they are requiring all passengers and drivers on the school buses to wear masks regardless of vaccination status. So that's the most recent information from the CDC regarding face coverings. Last, here we
Corey,
have...
Excuse me, could you go back a screen?
Sure.
The last sentence in the second paragraph.
Yep.
Could you, there are certain
Exemptions.
exemptions from the mask requirement.
Yep.
Individuals with disabilities under the ADA or individuals for whom wearing a mask would create a risk, workplace, health, safety. And we have been following that, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, last is a slide that contains data. If you remember last year at the board meetings, we provided information on where the district was, where the Portage County was, and where the state was. We didn't start that until September, but right now, and that's a 2-week rolling average. So, and that is of new confirmed positive cases. So right now, the district is at 1 per 100,000 residents, Portage County 10 at 100,000 residents, and the state at 12 per 100,000 residents. And again, that's over a 2-week period of time of new confirmed cases. Right now, Portage County has 79 active cases, which is 1.1% of our population. We have 97.8% recovered, 49% have received 1 dose of the vaccine, and 46.5% have completed the entire series. In Wisconsin, 10,479 active cases, which is 1.7% of the population, 98% recovered, 52.5% have received 1 dose, and 49.6% have completed this series. Just a couple other pieces of information. As of today, August 6th, there was 14 new confirmed cases in Portage County. This gets updated daily, so we're continuing to monitor that on a daily basis, and then also looking at the trends over time. As you know, the trends in the Portage County as well as the state are on an upward trajectory, which is why we're seeing a lot more conversation about masks, which is why we're seeing, advisories and additional information coming out. So it's fluid, and it's really important that we continue to keep that flexibility as we transition into the coming weeks and the coming months and year.
Can I ask a question?
Yep.
On the district count, because it's summer, is that only employees that are here during the summer and working during the summer? So it makes sense that that number is going to be pretty low.
Absolutely. When we had summer school in session, Mike, we did count students that were enrolled in summer school and staff, but right now, since summer school has ended, it would only include staff.
Yeah, okay.
I will leave after this comment.
I'm sorry, you are not allowed to make comment. You are not allowed to make comment at this point. I'm sorry, point of order. I know, but you are not allowed to make comment. Public comment was, you are not allowed to make comment, ma'am. Please?
No.
I would like.
Explain it.
You are not allowed to make comment.
But you can, so I want to hear your
You are not allowed to make comment.
I want to hear your comment. It was facial expressions and her.
You are not allowed to make. I'm going to have to ask you to either stop speaking or leave, because you are not allowed to make comment. This is the time when the board is deliberating in their business meeting, and I ask you to follow the rules. So do any board members have any questions related to the presentation?
Can I ask you another question?
Go ahead, Mike.
On the SEL screener, how does that, no, without going into a lot of detail, how does that work? Do you screen all children, or does somebody feel like they need to be screened?
All children will be screened, K-12.
Okay.
Yep, and we're actually getting training on it right now, Mike.
Okay.
So I will maybe give you some more information at a later date.
Yeah, okay. I just was, seemed like a large task to screen all the children.
It is online.
Yeah.
So who's going to be doing that? The individual teachers? So you have to train all the teachers?
No, yes, we do have to train teachers, but it's not that. We did a pilot last year, and the teacher said it didn't take that much to learn how to do it. It's pretty simple.
And Corey, are we keeping any kind of, or asking our staff if they've been vaccinated?
Not at this point.
Okay.
Unless there has been a positive case, and people are considered close contacts.
Okay.
Do any other board members have any questions of either Corey or Craig with respect to the presentation? Barb?
One question I did get asked by a teacher, and I can't remember what school, doesn't matter. Are the little plastic dividers going to be required on the students' desks, or just the ones in the offices?
They'll be available in the classrooms and in the offices.
Both?
Yep.
And
in cafeterias. Not required.
Okay.
They weren't required last year.
Okay.
They were just used in places where we didn't feel distancing was appropriate.
Okay, thank you.
So could you talk a little bit about the requirement with respect to masks on buses? Because you indicated that that's mandatory, and where does that mandate come out of, and how
I mean.
That comes out of the CDC guidelines. It's very specific that they have an order to require masking of all people on public transit. And it's interpreted through counsel, legal counsel, or to include buses, school buses as public transit. There probably wouldn't be consensus on whether a school bus is considered public transit in the legal world. However, it is very clear with the CDC guidelines that it is an order. So we will continue wearing masks on the bus because there's an order, very similar to what we did last year. And really, you know, you've got an issue of somebody forgetting a mask and whatnot. We have plenty of masks that we'll have on buses in the event some student forgets one. So the buses are in order. The buildings are a recommendation for all K-12 staff, students, vaccinated or not, but that's not an option on buses.
So with respect to the close contact, you know, clearly we did that all of last year and we'll be continuing to do that this year. My understanding, when I'm wearing a mask today because I was possibly exposed to COVID at the end of last week with someone who was staying with me in my home. And my understanding is if you're vaccinated, you are potentially exposed, you are required to wear a mask for, I believe it's 10 or 14 days, I can't remember which, and or get a negative COVID test. I think it's within 7 days. With respect to those who are unvaccinated, my understanding is the recommendation is that they will be required quarantine. Is that?
Yes.
It's 14 days.
It's a 14 days. So is that what we're currently, I guess I'm just trying to get a sense of if we wind up with, you know, a positive case in close contact, what we're going to be asking both of our staff and of other students within that building, within that classroom or whatever location.
And that contact tracing goes through the county. They're responsible for that. They reached a point last year to an emergency status where they couldn't keep up with it. We then took over the contact tracing in our buildings, as did most schools, as it related to staff and students. We're starting this year with Portage County being solely responsible for that. And hopefully it'll stay that way.
Change that.
Go ahead.
We are going to continue, Beth and I, we are going to continue contact tracing within the district.
We are.
Yes. Portage County will, and we will.
Okay.
So that both, they have the capacity to do that right now. The last we had talked to them, they're concerned that they're not going to be able to continue that long term. So we just felt as a district that it makes sense for us to just do it as well because we're going to have to shift to it anyway. So we'll start that way. And that's how we ended last year.
Are asymptomatic going to be eligible for early release? Remember last year they went the full 14?
If they are asymptomatic and if they get tested on day 6 or 7, they can return back on day 8.
On
8. Yep. Yep.
Anne
had a question.
Oh, Anne, do you have a question?
Yep, I do. It's about the busing. Will the students on the bus, will we be following guidelines as we did last year, where families can sit next to each other, otherwise we'll be skipping every other row?
We will social distance to the extent possible. We were able to do that last year. Knowing that, again, as you stated, family members or those living within the same residence can share seats.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions of board members with respect to the superintendent's presentation? Okay, thank you, Craig. We'll move into item 6, which is the consent agenda. Our consent agenda this evening includes minutes of the prior school board meeting of July 12th, 2021, the approval of the schedule of monthly bills, and employment recommendations. And you should have that updated list of employment recommendations at your place. So I'm looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Scott, second by Wade. I'm going to have Carlin call the roll because of the monthly bills.
Mr. Wade.
Yes.
Ms. Scott.
Yes.
Mr. Ebel.
Yes.
Mr. Pope.
Yes.
Ms. Portson.
Yes.
Ms. Rano.
Yes.
Ms. Vang.
Yes.
Mr. Mansky.
Yes.
Ms. Erler.
Yes.
And motion passes.
All right, we are moving into item 7, business services, and I'm turning it over to Mike as the chair of that committee.
Thank you. Our first item is bid award, 7A, bid award, Transportation Building Bid Package 19. And hopefully Dr. Owens is here to talk about the bidding.
Good evening. Tonight we're looking at the Transportation Building Bid Package 19. You have in front of you, and we'll shortly have it on the screen here, you'll see it in green. This is the summary of low bidders only. You have in your packet also, and of course everything that we showed tonight is on the website for anybody to look at. The presentations you saw plus this. This shows you a summary of the picking up the low bidders. All bidders are on an attached sheet if you choose to look at that. That's provided as well. But the summary of the bids came in at $615,839. It's over budget, but we have enough in total to cover for that. So this would allow us then to begin the work that's needed for that, as the people were told about that we would be doing in the referendum. We're at the far end of the envelope in terms of our window to approve this, so that the bidders are still holding the prices for us yet. But your action tonight, of course, is very important to move this forward. So we would recommend approval subject to your questions.
Any idea why we're so far over what we expected?
Yes, one of the main reasons had to do with the water system. That when they originally looked at this, they thought they'd be able to tie into the existing system, but the demands of the water and the changes that required, they have to go out into the street, and they have to tie into the main, and that's going to require a short period of time when that intersection over here is going to be blocked. They'll have to dig down, tunnel in, connect up to the main and the road, and then put the road back into the same condition that they found it in. So that intersection on HH, at least that portion of it's going to be temporarily blocked for a couple of days while they get that done. And that cost was $77,000, and that originally wasn't in. It's a chunk, but sometimes these things surprise you. They come up out of nowhere.
Rob, the bid package came through in June for our June meeting, just days before, and we didn't feel comfortable because of the overage. And Tom and I, Corey, met with Nexus 2-3 times to go over the package, with a fine-tooth comb. The overage in terms of dollar amount isn't significant, but the percentage certainly is. Not to undermine, $300,000. Then we went back to the scope of the project in the first place. Because it's over such a high percentage, should we even do it? Well, we told the public when we went to referendum we were going to do this. We were going to do these projects. Unfortunately, I would call it economy of scale. Because it's such a small project, it was very difficult for them to, there were a lot of surprises. And then the question is, why are we doing it in the first place? Well, the Bells Garage was built before 72 passenger buses were created. And so when you put the bus in, you can shut the door, but you really can't get behind it safely. And so, yeah, we need to do this. And so we decided we can wait till next year. They're holding them now knowing the price of steel is gonna go up. It may go up. Things have relaxed a little bit. We could, it's a coin flip. We could go back to bid, throw this out, go back next spring, could cost more. Could cost the same, could cost less, but I don't know when building projects, when they've gone up, when things flatten out, do they ever go down or they just kind of stay where they're at? So we thought long and hard over this and decided it's just best to bring it forward, knowing that we still have a contingency to get our other projects done as it relates to Bannock and McDill, a little bit on this HVAC system, a little bit at Point of Discovery. And we still are on target in terms of budget.
And Craig, if I may, a number of our projects have come under budget, correct, since we've been doing this?
It's like, $75 million with 15 different projects. Some are over, some are under. You'll recall Roosevelt was significantly over scope creep. And to say that we're at budget, it's averages out.
Okay.
Well, I will move to approve the bids for the Transportation Building Bid Package 19 as shown above, totaling $615,839.
Second?
So there is a motion and a second, motion by Wade and a second by Portson. Is there any further discussion or questions by board members? So, Tom, if this is approved, when will this work begin and when will it be estimated to be completed?
They'll be able to work on this starting in the fall, and they'll continue, so it'll be a few months they'll get the footings in and everything before the frost. They'll keep working. It's going to be a small addition that goes north of the building. It'll connect on it and push to the north a little bit. So they'll be able to work on that at the same time that the building's occupied.
All right, thank you. All right.
Ann, did you have a question? Ann Bang had her hand up.
Well, you know what? I've got the report that's on the screen, so I can't see the questions. Ann, did you have a question? Thanks, Jeff, for letting me know that.
I do not. I'll put my hand down.
All right. Any further discussion or questions on that item? All those in favor with aye?
Aye.
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 Any opposed with nay? Motion carries.
All right, the next item, 7B, revision of 2020-2021 budget. Tom, were you going to cover that, or Mr. Kurtz?
Dr. Kurtz is going to take this.
Hi, everybody.
Hi. Hi, Mike.
So the board approved the original budget back in October of 2020, and since then we've had a few revisions. So to comply with state statute, any changes to the adopted budget must be approved by a 2/3 majority vote of the school board. Attached to this agenda item, you'll see a notice of change. The notice of change displays all the budget revisions that occurred. The majority of the revisions are typical revisions that happen every year due to grants and carryover. However, this past year, we also had ESSER 2 funding that caused us to create additional changes to the budget. And that, again, is displayed on that table of change. And you can see some pretty big changes to Fund 10 and Fund 27 as a result of those ESSER funds. Are there any questions on that?
I will move to approve the revised 2020-21 budget.
Is there a second? So motion.
Second, Jeff Eagle here.
Oh, no, I got Judy beat you, so I got a motion by Mike and a second by Judy. Is there any further discussion or questions on those budget changes? They clearly are more substantive than we see most years because our finance department does a pretty good job of keeping us on target with our budget, so. Hearing none, all those in favor with aye?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed with nay? Motion carries.
The next item is 7C, Financial Summary, Referendum Progress Report.
I'm going to go ahead and take that one as well. So the financial summary is, we see that every month. It's a summary of our referendum progress. There's two tables, Table A and Table B. We use those tables to reconcile Fund 49. Both tables contain the same information, just in a little bit different way. So, as of, what was it, July 27th on there? I can't see it.
29th.
29th. As of July 29th, the total referendum paid to date was $54,949,000. Contracts to date issued, $71,762,000, leaving us with a contract balance of $16,813,000. Any questions on the table?
We're right, pretty much where we're supposed to be right now, huh?
Pretty much, yes.
Do any board members who are remote, I've got a table in front of me, so again, I can't see if anybody's got a hand up, so I guess speak up if you have a question. Oh, now I've got you.
No hands.
All right, any questions with respect to that referendum progress report?
No.
Okay.
And our last item is 7D, Review Financial Statements. Dr. Kurtz?
Yep, that's me again. The financial statements are through June 30th of 2021. So they're through the end of the fiscal year. They're going to show actual activity for 2021. So as you're looking at them, you'll be able to see how our actual activity compared to what we predicted in terms of our budget. I would just want to let you know that at the time the report was created, we weren't quite finished closing out the fiscal year. We're still in progress of doing that. I think Craig mentioned some things earlier about Tom giving a little bit more progress on how we did with our budget this year at a later time. But just wanted to give you that, just let you know that as you look at that, some of those numbers they're really close. They're very, very close, but there'll be some adjustments that will probably be made due to the audit and things like that. Any questions on the financial statements?
So Craig noted at the beginning in his report, just with respect to what we saw in terms of budget performance and clearly some under expenditures basically due to COVID this year. So my assumption is that those dollars will then, assuming whatever those dollars are, they'll move into fund balance. Is that, or am I incorrect?
Oh, you're not incorrect. I mean, if we don't spend all of our budget, then we have money left over that goes into fund balance. So that's exactly what could happen.
That won't be determined until our auditors completely.
Right.
Yeah.
Correct.
Give us a final budget.
Okay, all right. Any other questions of Mike? All right, thank you, Mike.
See you here, Mike.
It's my first time
I know.
in front of the board since I took this
Yeah,
position.
we saw you up on the wall, but that's it.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
All right, we are moving into human resources, and I'm going to turn that over to Rob Mansky as the chair of that committee.
We have one item on the agenda, 8A, which is a request to approve a 2.0 FTE academic interventionist and a 1.0 FTE student support specialist. Job descriptions are attached. Beth is in the back. If she can answer questions if you have questions. Or she can refer them to someone else who can answer.
Well, Beth's here, Connie's here. I'll let Beth speak and then add to that. Go ahead, Beth.
Yes. So as Rob indicated, we're presenting 2 new temporary support positions to hopefully assist in addressing some of the learning loss that we experienced over the pandemic. Looking at 1 at the elementary level, which will be located at Roosevelt, and then 2 at the secondary level. We're hoping that you'll approve those this evening. The job descriptions are there. I can probably answer general questions for you, but more specific questions I would defer to either Connie or Corey. And we are looking at funding these positions with the ESSER funds.
In one of the job descriptions that, under qualifications, it talks about secondary licensure, and then the other one is certified as a teacher, and I don't know enough about those things to know what's the difference, what's
Well,
one mean over
both
that?
positions have to be licensed, licensed teacher, and one is preferably at the secondary level for those that will be in the junior highs and at SPASH.
So if you're certified as a teacher, it could be at any level, but a secondary licensure is certification only at the secondary level, but it could be a teacher at that level?
Yes.
Yes. So
Okay.
for example, if you have an elementary license that maybe is just kindergarten through 3rd grade, you wouldn't be qualified to take a secondary teaching job. So that's why we have to be pretty specific on some of those postings, because
Yeah.
it requires a certain licensure.
Yeah, okay. All right, thank you.
And Beth, will they be working with the principals or with the teachers or with both?
I would say both.
All of the above.
All of them? Okay. And will that be part of the screening? Will they be?
They'll be part of that.
They'll be part of the screening too? Okay.
Yep. They'll know, how our students do both academically and with the behavior screener, and they'll be in the know.
Okay.
I had a question, Beth, about the academic interventionist position. Could you characterize how would that be different than a guidance counselor position? Because it looked to me to be very similar, but how do you see that happening so that it's a different position?
So what we did last spring is our student services and ed services staff did an amazing job literally going through all students' transcripts to see what was the learning loss specifically in how many of our students are credit deficit for this upcoming school year. And we saw an increase, of course, as we expected, as students throughout the nation did. So these particular positions will have, if you will, a caseload of students at a particular grade level who are in danger at the 9th grade level of being credit deficient because of performance in 8th grade. So they will have a caseload of students. They will be doing some direct tutoring with those students, provide direct support for students, looking at their academic progress in each of the classes, working with teachers on what specific needs is, with the sole purpose of our goal will be then our current, this year's 9th graders will leave our junior highs. Our vision is that we won't have any kids that are credit deficient. Even despite the learning loss in 8th grade, we're going to make sure that they get on track for graduation. At SPASH, it's the same vision, but we will be taking kids, and we have identified them already, the kids that are credit deficient. Those teachers will be working with teachers in other classes on how can students demonstrate proficiency to earn credit in a pass. Creative ways for our kids to get back on track with graduation is the sole goal for these positions.
Okay, thank you. The other question is why the one position at Roosevelt? Was there a special need identified there?
Yep. Our ELL numbers, our special ed numbers have increased significantly at that building. They're without a school psychologist right now, and they have a total enrollment of about 525 kids, which is significantly higher than any of our other elementary buildings.
Yeah, thank you.
And did you indicate that at this point these are positions and we're looking at a 1 year?
Temporary.
So it's a temporary 1 year, and so that's you're requesting approval from the board for that temporary 1 year position, or these 3 positions?
Correct, to be funded out of ESSER funds.
Funded out of S funds, okay.
If there are no other questions, I move to approve 2 FTE academic interventionist and 1 FTE student support specialist with the job descriptions for the 2021-2022 school year.
Second. Go ahead, Judy.
I have a second by, so I have, Mansky, made the motion and, Judy seconded. Any further discussion or questions on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor with aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed with nay? That passes. So we are now going to move into educational services, and again, I'm turning it over to Rob as the chair of the committee.
We are convening a public hearing pursuant to Wisconsin Statute 118.381B, request to DPI to waive educator effectiveness cycle for the 2021-22 school year.
So we are looking for a motion to convene the public hearing pursuant to Wisconsin Stat 118.38(1)(b) regarding submission of a request to the Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction, DPI, to waive the requirements to complete an educator effectiveness cycle for educators in their summary year in 2021-22, including waivers of the requirements to meet PI 8.01 and Wisconsin Stats 115.415 and 121.02(1)(q) for the 2021-22 school year. So we are now in our public hearing.
Don't you need a?
No, we need a motion, I'm sorry.
So moved.
Motion by Scott, do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Wade. Any discussion or questions by board members?
I have a question. Will this affect salaries?
Oh, this is, we're just going into public hearing now.
Oh, I'm
Gee,
sorry.
Yep,
I'm sorry.
so the motion right now is just for us to go into public hearing on this. Any questions with respect to that? All those in favor with aye?
Aye.
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 Any opposed with nay? We are now in the public hearing segment. Is there any member of the public that wishes to speak with respect to this waiver of educator effectiveness request? Hearing none, I will take a motion to adjourn the public hearing, or close the public hearing.
So moved.
Motion by Mansky, do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Wade. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor with aye?
Aye.
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 Any opposed with nay? So the public hearing is closed, and Rob, you can move on with the
Now,
agenda.
before you have a motion to approve the submission of a waiver for educator effectiveness requirements to the Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction for the 2021-2022 school year. If there are questions about that, I don't know if that's Corey or?
Yep.
Okay.
Do you want me to answer G's question? G, the answer to that question is we are still requiring new staff to go through the educator effectiveness cycle. And there may be staff that would have been on a performance improvement plan last year or would be put on one this year that we might be concerned about. That could potentially impact salary, but the majority of our staff will not be impacted by salary because it will be waived. But
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
So, Corey, did my recollection is the board did so as well this past year, that the state is allowing this again due to COVID. This is not
Exactly.
anything that we normally have back in what was normal that we would be doing as a district, but.
Exactly.
DPA
Since we're still in the pandemic, they offered districts across the state to apply for this waiver.
Throughout the state, the educator effectiveness evaluation tool has been very positive. That said, it is very, very involved, and our staff are under a tremendous amount of pressure right now with COVID. This is just an added requirement that we can waive, take off the plate, so we can concentrate on teaching children.
I move to approve submission of a waiver of educational effectiveness requirement to the Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction for the 2021-2022 school year.
Motion by Mansky, do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Wade. Any discussion or question on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor with aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed with nay? The motion carries.
Item 9D is a motion to approve the recommended academic standards for the 2021-2022 school year. You see the list in front of you. Questions can be addressed to Corey.
This is an annual action that the board has to take. It has to take place the first board meeting after July 1. So this is it. So we're requesting for you to approve the standards that are listed, and there are no changes from the standards that you approved last year.
So the standards I'm looking at are the Wisconsin Academic Standards, the Common Core State Standards, the Next Generation Science Standards, College and Career Readiness Standards, National Core Arts Standards, and the National Physical Education Standards.
Correct.
We have a motion?
I will make a motion right now. I move to approve the recommended academic standards for the 2021-2022 school year.
I'll second that.
I have a motion by Mansky and a second by Scott. Any discussion or question on the motion? All those in favor with aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed with nay? Motion carries.
Student Services, item 10A is the annual resolution regarding expulsions and IHOs. This is a request to approve the use of an independent hearing officer to determine student expulsion cases as presented. Caleb is here, I believe, to answer your questions.
Good evening. This is just an annual resolution I've done every year since I've been here. In the event that a student does commit an expellable offense and we choose to pursue an expulsion, I'm asking the board to approve the use of an independent hearing officer in those cases rather than the board hearing those cases at that time.
It's worked well.
Yeah.
Mike.
Would it be the same administrative officer that has seen these cases in the past?
Yes, so we have secured Christine Hamill from the Milwaukee area. To be our
Bison.
Yep, Van Bison, to do our independent hearing officer.
And if board members recall, the independent hearing officer actually hears the case.
Yes.
They hear the case from the perspective of the student and family. They hear the perspective from the district. They then compile a report. That report then does come to the board.
Yes.
And we, as a board, then conduct a closed session meeting with respect to that. At that meeting, the board has the ability to approve the recommendations, to say we're not in favor of them, or to actually amend recommendations. And ultimately, the board does final approval of whatever action intended to take. And then again, that action is in open session.
So I'd like to make a motion to approve the use of an independent hearing officer to determine student expulsion cases as presented.
Second.
So I have a motion by Scott and a second by Branham. Do we have, Brano, sorry. Do we have any questions with respect to that motion? Hearing none. All those in favor with aye?
Aye.
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 All those opposed with nay. The motion carries.
Thank you.
We're moving into item 13A, which is the COVID-19 operational and academic processes and procedures authority. So this item is on for tonight. Last year, the board in June of 2020 recognized and authorized Superintendent Gerlach's authority to implement operational academic processes and procedures in response to COVID-19 and its effect on our district. That's the system that we've been operating on this entire year. In speaking with council, they have recommended, again, we authorized for the particular school year, the 2021 school year, and that the board should be able to, again, make a decision as a board as to whether we would like to continue that system for the 2021-2022 school year. So that matter is in front of us now. I guess I'd open it up first for any questions that board members might have of Superintendent Gerlach. And then we'll be looking to a motion, and of course then the board will have the ability for discussion on any motion brought forward. So do any board members have any questions of Superintendent Gerlach?
I have a question. So on a practical basis, I know you guys were meeting on COVID issues daily and, you know, in some cases making changes on a weekly or bi-weekly basis, and for you to have to wait until this once a month board meeting in order to make decisions, that, to me, that seems like a problem. So what's your perspective on that?
You know, obviously, you heard from some of the public today a concern that one person's making this decision. When decisions get made, they're based on guidelines by the guidelines that we receive from the CDC, from the Department of Health Services, from the Portage County Health Department, from the Department of Public Instruction, from WASDA, my state organization. I talk to my colleagues. I talk to my neighboring school districts. I talk with Board President Meg Erler. I talk with Board Vice President Jeff Ebel, and our cabinet meets regularly to discuss this. And then decisions get made after I receive feedback from all of these. This isn't anything I am jumping up and down to want to do. It's truly the board's prerogative. The real issue is masks. Are we going to wear masks or not? Last year, I closed classrooms, made decisions to close classrooms for e-learning. We closed buildings for e-learning. Those are decisions. We'd have to have emergency board meetings, or you'd have to give specific parameters on what are we going to do when we find out on Sunday night we don't have enough substitutes on Monday morning for Roosevelt Elementary School. I don't have the authority to close school because of that. We made adjustments to our athletic program. We made adjustments to concerts and plays. Typically, decisions boards would get involved with. We made decisions on calling off or going to e-learning from Thanksgiving to Christmas. Was not popular. We had to make that decision because we couldn't sustain it. We didn't have the staff to sustain. We made decisions to modify our schedule at the beginning of the school year. We made decisions When I say myself, based on feedback from the areas, or the people and organizations that I've talked about, we made a decision on graduation. All decisions at boards around the state of Wisconsin, I'm looking at my text because there's a lot of board meetings right now. Split votes are coming all out tonight on masks. Nobody's talking about anything I'm talking about except for masks. And masks, if you take a look at who I hear from, in terms of my correspondence with emails, it's both sides. It's right down the middle. For each person that says this, I got a person that says that. That's what boards make decisions on. I'm sorry. They make decisions on what their constituents think. And so we'll have a split vote. What the vote would be, I don't know, but that's your decision. If you want to have masks be a board vote, you can do that. We can't do it tonight. It's not on the agenda. If you want me to make decisions, or if you want to limit decisions, or if you want to give me the authority as you did last year. Last year went, I think, okay. Okay is about as good as it really got for anybody. Towards the end, it probably got more difficult because people were just tired. People were frustrated. We're starting this year tired and frustrated. So we got a long year ahead of us. Truly, it's your prerogative as a board what you'd like to do, and it's if you guys choose to meet and have and make these decisions, so there's a record, a vote on record. I understand that. We'll do that. If you want to pass the authority on to me, I'll make the very best decisions I can based on the people that I'll be talking to. It's the best I can explain that.
Do any other board members have any questions for Craig? Then I am looking for a motion.
I move to continue Superintendent Gerlach's authority to implement operational and academic processes and procedures in response to COVID-19 and its effect on education and the learning environment.
I'll second that motion.
I have a motion by Wade. I have a second by Scott. Opening up for discussion and questions by board members.
In my opinion, in the last year, I think, Craig, you've followed the best advice possible. You've talked to far more people than any of us have, and you've shown to me the propensity to follow the best advice out there from the CDC, Department of Health, and so on. I think it's, as you said, it was probably as good as it could be last year in an awful year. And I think that the process, also it allowed you to make decisions quickly, as you said, which we wouldn't be able to do if you didn't have that authority.
So just a comment. So the majority of the emails I received were positive about the last year in a struggle that was so difficult for everyone. And requests to please keep our schools safe for 7,000 kids and their families, for 1,000 employees, and this board hires a superintendent to run the operations of the district. They put their trust, they ask questions, and you may not always hear all of the questions or requests that we share with the administration. We're a part of this community. We have kids, grandkids. We totally understand both sides of the story. I have a granddaughter who had to wear a mask. I understand it. But we have to make sure that the whole district comes together. And that means every department we have, from teachers and educational assistants and bus drivers and the food service people and custodians, all of them. That is a huge full-time job that we hire a superintendent to hire professionals, and in the midst of COVID, who has training for that? No one. So I just have to say, it's not an easy thing, but I absolutely support the person who's been doing this since COVID started to keep everyone as safe as possible in our schools.
I have a comment too, if I may. I just want to make it known to everybody, to the board and those that are coming in tonight. I don't want to wear a mask. I don't want to social distance. I don't want to do any of that stuff. Unfortunately, it's not about what I want. I mean, there are other people that I have to think about, I have to consider. And I think based on the situation and how quickly things change, and with the track record that Craig showed us last year, I think that we should continue to give him the authority to make those decisions based on what is good for the majority of the students and the employees of the district and everyone that's involved in this.
Are there any other comments from board members? I want to note, just in the position that I've been in, just the practical reality. I mean, it's not just that Superintendent Gerlach, Assistant Superintendent Hirschbrenner, Connie Nygaard, John Bollendorf, I mean, you name them. They're not only making those day-to-day decisions about what's happening in a particular classroom, what's happening with respect to staffing, what's happening or what needs to happen 3 weeks down the road, because I think we all recognized last year our administration really attempted in any major changes impacting students and families to be proactive in both providing a heads up it was happening and then creating the systems to support it, oftentimes in partnership with the Boys and Girls Club, with the YMCA, with our child care partners, with Todd Kukan and the Business Council. I mean, just constant conversations. There were meetings that were happening weekly initially, then bi-weekly for most of the year with many of our community leaders, including the mayor and the chair of the county, Dan Mahoney, the university, MSTC, many of our nonprofits. I mean, just ongoing input that no one of us as a board member, and not us even collectively as a board, would have, I believe, the ability to have that information, because we're all very part-time. I mean, we're part-time board members. And I think it's so important that those decisions are made with that broad level of input, both from our staff and from the community. I also want to note that Superintendent Gerlach and administration provided the board with updates at every one of our meetings, and we actually had more special meetings last year than I can remember in a long time, and there was a lot of discussion among our board, and there was not uniformity of opinion among our board, and there were numerous times that, based on the input of the board and conversations that happened, there were substantive revisions made to what the superintendent and cabinet were planning to do and how they were planning to move forward. And that is something that is also essential, both for our board to have a broad understanding of what's happening, as well as the community. So I'm in support of continuing this. I believe it's essential that we allow the professionals that we hire in this district to make the very best decisions that they can make for the day-to-day operations of our schools, especially in a time of constant ongoing change, which none of us wanted to see it this year. I think all of us were thinking June and July was going real smooth. I think what we've recognized is we don't know what we don't know any more this year than we knew last year at this time. And we've got to be prepared to be proactive, flexible, and problem-solving moving forward. Judy?
I agree with that as well, and agree with how fast things change, and we need to put our support and trust in the school district and the staff here to make those decisions. I also don't love wearing a mask, and working in healthcare, I wear a mask all day. And so I would encourage, as soon as possible, when we are able to really look at how soon can we make that a choice to wear masks. So I know you'll take that under consideration and trying to get back to normal when and as possible, which I know you will do.
Are there any further discussions, comments, questions of board members?
Meg, when you take a vote, could we have a roll call, please?
Yes.
Thank you.
Hearing no other comments or discussion, Board Member Scott has requested a roll call, and so I will ask Carlin to call the roll.
Ms. Rano,
Yes.
Mr. Ebel,
Yes.
Ms. Portson,
Yes.
Ms. Scott,
Yes.
Mr. Wade,
Yes.
Mr. Pope,
Yes.
Ms. Va,
Yes.
Mr. Mansky,
Yes.
Ms. Erler.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
To that point, first of all, I want to say thank you, but I don't really know what I'm saying thank you for. The real issue here is masks. I get it. People want to know for a lot of different reasons, and they need to. I also know that we've got a little bit of time, and a little bit of time is better than, we don't need to make a decision right now. And so I'm not going to have a decision tomorrow. I'm going to, this is a significant issue. I get it. We'll make it when I feel as if we can make the right decision and not have to change. I know boards that were going to, last week, that were going to do something tonight, and they've already changed what they were going to do. So we don't want to make a decision and change it by the time school starts. I can tell you this, all of what we're talking about, the data, issues, it's not going to be the same in 3 weeks. Now, that said, we don't want to wait till the weekend before. I get that. But we certainly will take another week, maybe 2. But we want to get the word out to parents. And I know parents are asking, you know, what will that decision be?
So we are moving into 13B, and that is school board goals of 2021-22 and operating protocols. This was something that we had on a retreat. You know, as happens sometimes in the summertime, we did have a small group who were planning on meeting to work through those protocols. That meeting has not yet occurred. So I guess we're asking, and we also, of course, are going to be in closed session this evening discussing the superintendent's goals. And so I guess we're asking the board to postpone this until our September meeting, and then that group can get together, work on the protocols, and then we'll have the superintendent's goals to help the board form its goals. So I guess I'm looking for a motion to move that to the September meeting.
So moved.
Motion by Rana. Do I have a second?
She got a problem with your name.
I know.
Do I have a, okay, second by, was that Ebel or?
Jeff, yeah.
Okay, second by Ebel. All right, so the motion is to move the school board goals 2021-22 and operating protocols to our September meeting. All those in favor with aye?
Aye.
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 Any opposed with nay? Okay, thank you. So moving into future meetings, dates and times, our next meeting will be our September 13th, 2021 regular board meeting, absent the need to call a special meeting. I also want to note that we did move to continue, or to start our school board committee meetings back up in September of 2021. Of course, as happens every year, the first Monday is Labor Day, so we will be looking to have those committee meetings on Tuesday, September 7th, 2021. And just a reminder, and Carlin will be sending out a reminder, of course, closer. Those meetings start at 6 p.m. and 7 p.m. So that first committee meeting starts a half hour before our regular school board start time. So just so board members recall that. We did make that change, I think, I don't know, a year and a half ago or 2 years ago. So with that, I am looking for a motion to go into closed session under 1985 paren 1 paren C, considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility, specifically evaluation of the superintendent position. Could I have a motion to go into closed session?
So move.
Motion by Wade. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Portson. Any discussion on that motion? I will have Carlin call a roll.
Mr. Mansky,
Yes.
Ms. Va,
Yes.
Mr. Pope,
Yes.
Ms. Portson,
Yes.
Mr. Wade,
Yes.
Ms. Scott,
Yes.
Mr. Ebel,
Yes.
Ms. Reno,
Yes.
Ms. Erler.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, so we are in closed session. Give us about 10 minutes to set